Gen Bipin Rawat and myself, we are from the same regiment but different battalions. The synergy between the three services, I can say today, has been more than ever before. It was the government of India who took the first step for path of these reforms when they announced by creating this post of CDS. It was a bold and a major decision and can be said to be the starting point of the reforms that are being attempted now. What I am trying to attempt is what Gen Bipin Rawat started and initiated. I hope I succeed. I think it will make that old man happy. Manjeet had asked me to speak on India's move towards higher defense reforms. And as the subject was introduced, it's a legacy actually, which actually Gen Bipin Rawat started. Last month, I was in Lucknow at my regimental center, celebrating the platinum jubilee of our regiment. Gen Bipin and me were from the same regiment. And someone inquired from me the reasons behind my successful military career. I told him that 3 of my predecessors in the battalion who were extremely competent officers. They laid the benchmarks of professional excellence, and I just followed that particular line. Gen Bipin Rawat and myself, we are from the same regiment but different battalions. I followed him as the 2nd Chief of Defence Staff of the Armed Forces. Here again, my job was made slightly easier. He had set the initial set of reforms to be undertaken that were actually sown by him. It helped me convert his thoughts and ideas into firm policies and lay down achievable milestones. The reforms that we are ushering today are a continuation of the process that actually was started by General Bipin Rawat at the first CDS of the country. But if I look back slightly in time, probably it was the government of India who took the first step for path of these reforms when they announced by creating this post of CDS and carving out a Department of Military Affairs. It was a bold and a major decision and can be said to be the starting point of the reforms that are being attempted now. The creation of the post of CDS and carving out of this Department of Military Affairs has propelled the three services to work together. The synergy between the three services, I can say today, has been more than ever before. The spirit of creating something new is there, and there is a changed mindset. I believe all of this will propel us to the next generation of reforms. I think the armed forces today are at the cusp of this major change and transformation. Heraclitus, an ancient Greek philosopher, had said that the change is only constant in life. Change is part of nature. It's part of natural environment. It is necessary to survive. Here I like to quote Charles Darwin, who in his seminal work, Origin of Species, had said that variation, inheritance, selection, timing, and adaptation are necessary for any species to survive. I would like to translate this into Hindi to bring out the import and the importance of this particular quote. परिवर्तन, विरासत, चयन, समय, अनुकूलन किसी भी परिजाति के अस्तित्व को बताने के लिए अनिवार्य है. What Darwin said in his theory of natural selection was true for organisms. I think that it's equally true for organizations. This is true for hierarchical and structured tradition-bound organizations like the armed forces. In the process of natural selection, the change in the species is gradual, it's slow, and it's also automatic. In organizations, we'll have to be imaginative, innovative, and inventive to survive. We may also require a little bit of push from the outside to get this process of change slightly faster. Let me now talk about future wars. There is a maxim that says that armed forces should be prepared to fight the future war and not the past one. The future of war, I believe, is changing, and changing rather fast. It's difficult to predict the trajectory of future wars with accuracy, as it does not follow a linear kind of progression at times due to convergence of disruptive technologies. However, some trends can be predicted, and I'll basically attempt that. I think firstly, The future wars will be multi-domain operations, merging the old domains of land, air and maritime with the new domains of cyber, space and electromagnetic spectrum. Secondly, there will be convergence of kinetic, non-kinetic along with the cognitive domain, that's the informational domain, in application of force. Thirdly, disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, smart networks, edge computing will propel the current paradigm of whatever we say is information superiority in operations to decision superiority in future battles. Battlefield transparency and situational awareness will reach new heights and new levels. This is predicted on proliferation of sensors. Means if you see today, God has given us all, means we are about 8 billion people and there may be about 16 billion eyes actually, God-given sensors on this earth. The number of sensors which man has produced has probably crossed that. They are available on all your smartphones, all your laptops, all your PCs, they are there on roads, they are there on satellites, they are there on drones, they are everywhere, they are ubiquitous and they may be more than what God has produced. So in such kind of a warfare, there is nothing like camouflage, concealment, feints, and physical deception. All these things are a day of past. This is because of enhanced battlefield transparency. In future, I think we'll have to rely on cognitive domain to deceive the enemy. Deepfakes, digital twins, toolkits for infill operations, they'll become the order of the day. The fifth major change which I think we'll see in warfare is the quantum of long-range vectors and precision guidance, small radar cross-section weapons, vectors like drones, loiter ammunition, and stealth technologies will put a lot of strain on air defense networks. There will be gaps and it will be difficult to protect large and static platforms. There will be a major change in future. Long back, Clausewitz had talked about fog and friction of war. And fog is basically getting removed because of this battlefield transparency which I just spoke about. It's dependent on the large amount of sensors which we'll have in battlefield tomorrow. And the friction he spoke about, that kind of which happens in maneuver, we have this advanced technologies which again I spoke about, which actually provide you good mobility. Innovations in robotics, autonomous systems and biotechnology will impact global peace and security, the nature of armed conflicts and the manner in which security is managed. Constant security of these developments and putting forth their potential to the decision makers will be critical in future. The trends of warfare dictate that we create organizational structures that are integrated and joint for multi-domain operations, about which I referred right at the beginning. We should be able to offer a credible response across the spectrum of operations, and I believe the spectrum of operations will range from what I call as 5 C's, that is competition, confrontation, crisis, conflict and combat. And combat means war, in an integrated and a cohesive kind of manner. The foundation of integrated and future-ready operational structures rests on 2 fundamental principles: jointness and integration. Jointness, it can be defined as the spirit of working together, a congenial kind of an atmosphere, removing mistrust that exists between the 3 services. This, in my view, has been achieved to a large extent, and this year, at least I would be trying to do something on joint culture. We are all aware that the past 77 years or so, the 3 services have grown almost independently, creating their own fiefdoms, their own capabilities, and along with it, their own culture. So today we have a culture of the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. There is nothing known as a joint culture in the services. I think unless we create this joint culture, we cannot expect the joint organization that we create for warfighting to survive or to do efficiently well. So that should be an important step, and we will try and create this kind of a 4th culture in the armed forces, which is joint culture, to work together. Creating culture means, we all know, it takes some amount of time, but without this, there is no way forward. The next is integration. This is a physical process. It involves selection and incorporation of the best practices among the 3 services. when we incorporate the best practices in the three services, we are looking at the highest common denominator and not at the lowest common denominator, highest common factor. We have identified about 9 verticals for integrating the three services. It's a physical process, which I said. It deals with operations, operation logistics, training, intelligence, human resource, legal issues, administration, supply chain management, and maintenance of equipment. Last year, actually, we had carried out a number of activities which showcased jointness and integration between the three services. The first among them was deployment of MiG-29s of the Indian Navy at Nalia Airfield on ORP duties, thus relieving Indian Air Force for important jobs up north. We had also carried out a number of single services exercises which had been converted into bi-service or tri-service kind of exercise. Recently, you would have seen exercise Vayu Shakti. The name was Vayu Shakti, but there was participation of all the three services into this exercise. And a couple of days back, you would have seen the Bharat Shakti demonstration, which was the lead service for the Army, but capability of the three services, including space and cyber, were demonstrated in that particular exercise. So this way, what we are attempting would be to convert all the initiatives and events which we have taken into firm orders and instructions to provide some kind of an endurance to this particular effort. The further reforms in organizational and operational structures will require some changes in higher defense organization. It will also require development of new concepts and commensurate doctrines for carrying out joint operations. Induction of new capabilities and technologies like drones, hypersonics, net centricity will necessitate review of existing doctrines and our training pamphlets. It will require generation of new thoughts and ideas in the institutes of our higher learning. Some course correction towards this end is already on. Next, I would like to speak about the Agniveer scheme. This is again a kind of a transformative scheme that at least strengthens the commanding officer who are at the cutting edge of combat. And here, these officers have a choice in the kind selection of people who think they will retain with themselves for actual combat. I think we are strengthening that commanding officer at the cutting edge, and there could be nothing better than this particular scheme. The scheme has many other advantages. The scheme is it's not only strengthening the armed forces, it's strengthening the nation by getting back trained people, motivate people back into the civil street and to carry forward the reforms which we are expecting the nation to actually form. The scheme also has a possibility of scaling up numbers in times of crisis. Today people are there with a 4-year kind of a term, but should there be a crisis or a log war, as we have witnessed in case of, say, Ukraine and Russia, they could easily increase the terms of engagement from 4 to 5 years. That will give you a ready-made strength increase of almost about 50,000 persons per year. The next I would like to, this particular scheme was introduced during the time of Gen Bipin Rawat, and he was a great proponent of this particular scheme, Agniveer. Atmanirbharta was another initiative which was initiated at the time of Gen Bipin Rawat, and this is a subject by itself and was another bold initiative that will help the nation maintain its strategic autonomy. It will help by reducing import dependency and increasing defense domestic production. As our infrastructure becomes better, more and more foreign products will form strategic partnerships with India, and this will lead to better utilization of the defense budget. Improved research and development coupled with coming of age of indigenous defense production will make us self-reliant and reduce dependencies on global supply chains. Local manufacturing will also help create employment opportunities for hundreds of people. In conclusion, I would like to say that in the histories of nations, there comes a turning point when nations grab that moment and achieve the impossible. The Japanese post-war economic miracle after World War II and the Germans' reconstruction in 50s and 70s are example of this. And I believe that India's Amrit Kal has arrived. India has to transform on many fronts and is now ready to take off to a next orbit of development. Vision 2047 is to become a Viksit Bharat. Viksit Bharat in my view, has also to be a Shashakt Bharat. We need to conceptualize the future and create it as we want it. As the armed forces, we need to think ahead, crystal gaze, as we visualize future, warfare in future, and chalk out bold, ambitious, and transformative agenda. Military and defense reforms that are being attempted are just a stepping stone and part of the larger change that we want to implement, and we become a future-ready armed force. So, as I said in the beginning, what I'm trying to attempt is what Gen Bipin Rawat started and initiated. I hope I succeed. I think it will make that old man happy.